when it comes to editing photos, there's a lot to know. But at the most basic level is layer adjustments. So I'm going to show you just a few different layer adjustments that will enhance photos, make them look a lot better. Lighting is probably the biggest thing that we need to adjust for, but every once in a while we have color and just contrast and brightness in general. So I'll show all of those. I'm going to actually start with this picture right here that my yearbook students took last year of a student here at Corner Canyon playing basketball. It's a really good picture. Now, when I look at this, I've seen so many pictures, especially indoors. I'm always looking for color and the right colors. And here I can tell that it's a little bit yellow. So we're going to adjust that a little bit for color, adjust this picture for color. So if you click in the adjustments panel here, or if you don't see it anywhere, click on Window and Adjustments right there. Now there's a lot of different options to adjust this image, and we're just going to keep it simple with just a few different ones, the most typical ones to change. And for this one, it's color balance right here, this little scale. So I'm going to click that, and what it does, it gives me a layer and a mask for that layer and some color options. So like I said, this one is pretty yellow, and so to get rid of the yellow, I'm going to go opposite of this yellow color right here. So I'm going to drag it blue. Now, you never want to go all the way or even halfway usually. It's just too much. We want to make slight adjustments. Okay, we don't want it to show up obvious that we've made changes. We just want to slightly change some things. So even by just changing that a little bit more blue rather than yellow, if I click this eyeball, I can see what it looked like before. You can see the difference. Took out a lot of yellow color. Now it's a little bit blue now, but I can make slight adjustments to the others, maybe add just a little bit more red, and you can see them going up slightly. +4, +18 is quite a bit there. But if I take a look at that now, it looks so much better already. So you can kind of just slide things around. It's really hard to know what's best until you do it a lot and look at a lot of pictures. But just, I mean, if there's an overwhelming yellow color, get rid of it. If there's an overwhelming, or if it's just obviously dark, we're going to brighten it up. So, but there's opposite colors here, and you can kind of play around. But the main thing is to not get too carried away. Don't go too far. I hardly ever go this high, but there's just so much yellow that I wanted to bring that out, or make sure I got that out. So I can click the eyeball and see what it looked like before. That's a lot better. It's not a drastic change, but it takes a lot of that yellow out. It looks a lot better. So I'm going to click this double arrow thing to get that out of the way. And I can also now click this eyeball to see what the difference was. Or I can also go into my history and click when I opened it versus where I made the changes and see the differences there. Now if I find out later that I don't like the colors, or there's something else I want to change, or get rid of some of that red or a little more yellow, whatever it is, I can come back to this layer mask and double click right here and get those options back, and it still has what I've changed. Okay, so that's double clicking on this little icon right there. Okay, that's color balance. The next one I want to show, here's a soccer picture from last year also. This adjustment, I want to change the brightness and contrast. And so this is there is a brightness, well, yeah, let's just go here for this demonstration, I guess. This levels right here, I'm going to get to on the next one, but I do this for almost every picture, just slightly. It makes it look so much better. But for learning purposes, we'll go to brightness and contrast. And look, I can brighten it up, and it doesn't look like too bad of a picture until you brighten it up a little bit, and you say, oh, that looks so much better. So we can brighten it up, and then the contrast kind of makes the darkers a little more dark and the lights a little more light. So it adds contrast, which is nice in pictures. So again, we don't want to get too carried away. So I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. The downside of lightening it up is it kind of gets rid of some of the detail. Like look on the player's shoulder right here. If I go too far with this and contrast, it gets rid of some of that detail. See, when I get rid of it, see all that detail that was there? And now it's not. So there's always a trade-off, and that's all. We don't want to get too carried away again. So just slight changes, and it just kind of takes a little bit of that darkness off, little bit of haziness that there are on almost any picture that we take. And it looks a lot better, with it being a little bit lighter. So that's the brightness and contrast. Now we can have two things. So I could also change the color of this, and it brings up two mask layers. And, you know, whatever, if I wanted a little bit more red in there, just slight differences, and it changes the look of it a little bit. Okay, I kind of like how it was actually. So I could click this trash can right there. Yes, I want to delete it, and it goes away. Okay, next one, last one I'll show is a picture of the school. Now this, the sky is very bright behind it, and it's pretty dark here, and it shows up in the picture. I wanted to lighten it up a little bit here on the school because that's the focus of the picture. So I'm going to do this levels, and well, let's see. So this middle one right here is how you drag the colors, the lightness. This is basically like changing the brightness, like in the other one. And you don't want to get too crazy because it just starts to go white. So you change it a little bit. This will change kind of the contrast to make the darkers a little more dark. And then you can lighten it up a little bit more. And this one actually is good in this picture, but this, if it's too dark, it lightens it up a bit. It's actually really bright in the sky, so that's why it's okay. But I dragged that middle one in quite a bit, and see that? How it's much brighter. Maybe a little more contrast. Now it looks good. Now the trade-off is that the sky gets a little bright, too bright. And I liked that there's a little bit of clouds in there, and I want to bring it back to where it was. In fact, let me just lighten this up just so I can see a little bit more. Okay, the sky. Okay, it changes quite a bit, and I like the old sky. So what I want to do, or in some cases, what I might want to do is mask out part of the layer. This is a mask layer. So I'm going to click on this mask part of it, and I can mask out something if it changed the sky, if it made the sky too bright. When I like this, but I don't like this. So I'm just going to mask this out, and it masks out the changes. So I'm going to get my brush and make sure black is on top. Make my brush really big. Actually, I'm not even going to use the brush because I could probably just use this magic wand and select all that. And my tolerance could be a little higher, it looks like, or I can just hold down Shift and click plus. And there we go. That's better. And click the other sections and even get inside the bell tower because that's the background too. Oops. Holding down Shift, I'm adding to the selection. Now I've got the selection really good, and I'm just going to mask that out. And now I'll get my brush, and here we go. Doesn't look like it changed much, but now we can see the change. So there we go. I masked it out, and right here you can see where it's masked. So I'm masking out the change of levels, and it's reverting it back to how it was, just the sky, and it keeps the brightness of the foreground to the school. Now, if I don't want to completely change it, in this case it's not that big of a deal, but sometimes I don't want to completely change it, so I'm going to undo that, and I might want to change the opacity down to something else and then brush over it, so then it doesn't change it all the way or revert it all the way back. It's kind of somewhere in the middle, and then you can kind of see the difference if you let's see, go back in the history and go back to where it was open. See, that's where it was, and this is where I am now. Undo that, or deselect. So I go back to open. That's how it was. So the sky's a little darker. It brightened up a little bit, but the foreground brightened up a lot. So those are adjustment layers, and we can keep them there forever. The other thing to note, I guess, and there's a lot to know, but if I have two layers, and I've got pictures on both of these layers, and I only want this adjustment layer to affect one layer below it, not both, then I can click on the layer, actually double click here to get the options back to properties, and if I click this, it only applies to the layer right below it. Now it went away on that background layer because I said I only wanted it to apply to this layer and there's nothing on it. So I can check that or uncheck that so it either masks all layers below it or just one. So that's it for the adjustment layers.